by the number of expected deals in 4 years, we get $8.5 million. So the size of the seed fund should be somewhere around this number. It's important to note that the number of $500,000 is just an average, so there will be deals that require more than this. For those deals, co-investor opportunities will be pursued. As we can see in the graph, the number of deals per year will increase with increasing research opportunities at OU and with availability of funds. These numbers come from OU data and historic benchmarking on technologies yielding companies from Autumn. And as the Fund 1 becomes completely invested, additional fundings will be raised. So what are the next steps in the implementation of our seed fund? If we consider a timeline starting in January of 2008 and finishing early in 2008, we get that, first of all, a steering committee, an OU seed fund planning committee should be appointed. The main goal of this committee will be to elaborate a formal implementation plan to present to the OU leadership. Once this plan is approved, legal aspects such as the formal establishment of the OU seed fund structure must be taken care of. Afterwards, there must be the recruitment of the management team to proceed with the fundraising. That will be between $7 to $10 million, as mentioned before. And finally, we'll proceed with the deal screening and with the well-decided investment process.
And so that was sort of the short-term goals of the seed fund. And now to get a sort of broader long-term look, we will use the seed fund to provide an engine for Oklahoma's long-term economic growth. And the way we'll do that is we'll start by partnering with and working with OU's long-term research strategy, which includes working with the University Research Cabinet and also adding faculty incentives. And then in addition to that, we'll work with the statewide workforce training initiative by partnering with such entities such as OCAS, the state regents, Career Tech, and just various state and local chambers of commerce. And then encompassing that, we'll look for other local affiliations that can include the Noble Foundation, the University of Tulsa, Oklahoma State University, OMRF, I-CCEW, and the Presbyterian Health Foundation. And then finally, we'll look for some national affiliations. These can include, again, U-Ventures, which Mariana mentioned earlier, UTech, and just general research, regional and national venture firms. And the whole goal of all these affiliations is to promote technology development and commercialization within the university, and also to achieve success in driving Oklahoma's long-term vision of economic growth. And so I'd like to just take a moment to thank Dr. William Paiva for his help and his leadership in guiding us to come to this point in the semester. And I'd also like to thank the faculty and staff at I-CCEW for all of their help. And we will now field any questions that you might have.
What's the complexities, or are there complexities of commingling in a single fund, or would you separate those dollars that were invested for profit and those that were put in as gifts?
Yeah, there are some complexities. That's something that could be worked out. We've seen a few other models that have sort of split that up and formed a separate company to take care of the investment as opposed to the gift. But I think that's something that the management team that we would select, they would lay out the plan and see which would work best for this specific fund. So I can't really speak to exactly how that would work, but I mean that would definitely need to be taken into consideration.
You can tap into state funds that I noticed, and recently the state established a, I can't remember I mean, they haven't worked out even the board for it, but it's a similar situation. Why the state will benefit from this? Why did you not consider tapping into some of their venture funds?
I think you're referring to the EDGE initiative, and
Yeah.
the idea we had is that they could be a co-investor with us, with our fund, and so that therefore creating partnerships in that regard.
However, the EDGE fund is very limited in what it's going to go after. I mean, are you suggesting that certain technologies be emphasized and only those seeded?
We're looking at a broad range of technologies, and I don't think we're limiting ourselves to in any regard. And we're looking across campuses and not within solely Norman or within engineering or within technology. It's a broad range of technologies or processes even that we're looking at.
And I think that initially our focus is going to be university technologies coming out of OU. Eventually we'll hope to expand and probably incorporate and work with more OCAS and their fund and just sort of expand and become broader as we reach out to more technologies that are available to fund.
You examined 4 models and you ranked the standalone approach as the preferred option. If you had more time to work on this, would you continue to analyze that, or would you spend that time looking at one of the other 3 models?
Well, I think that was the sole purpose of this project, was to figure out which model we would like to pick for the university, and I think we exhausted those options thoroughly because we felt like the focus of this, at least initially, was through funding university technologies, and the best way to do that would be through a standalone fund. So maybe eventually we would look down the road, like Ryan mentioned, and that last slide, to tie in with national entities, but initially that wasn't even a viable option, in our opinion, because of the fact that they would simply overlook the University of Oklahoma, most likely. And I think that these inventors in the audience would probably agree with that statement, that it's difficult to have people attracted here in the first place.
As you conducted your interviews, did you talk to anyone who might be a potential investor and donor? What was the level of interest in actually put in money to set the fund?
Well, I talked with the foundation, and they are a primary area we're looking to have manage the fund, and they're very interested in pursuing this. But at the same time, we have heard that there are several private investors who are interested in putting their dollars into the fund. So I definitely think that this is stirring interest within the university and surrounding the university, especially with alumni and people who are Oklahomans seeing interest in this. So, yes.
When you guys had that the matrix, one of the lines on there was market driven, and you ranked standalone fund ahead other funds that were university associated or multi-university funds. Why was that?
I think we felt like we would have a more intimate knowledge of what the technologies would be and who the mentors were, and have a better understanding of what they wanted to do and where they wanted to see their company going. So while that could be a bit of a conflict of interest, we felt like that was a better way to know our investment, and therefore we ranked that higher because of the market-driven economics of seeing what that vision was, and then we could go from there through that. Yeah.
Did you make up in your I really enjoyed that presentation as an inventor and having difficulty getting seats my concern is that the research needs to be done not from somebody like you guys in order to determine the makeup of the board. My concern would be that your timeline, that things sometimes in the university get very drawn out. And a seed fund, needs to make quick decisions and not on a state bureaucratic organization. It needs to be more of a private sector, and that's why you just touched on great things. But I think you would agree, looking at the way you wanted that organization structured, that we need to have forward-thinking people that are going to say, "This is a good technology. We need to move this right along."
That's the reason why we are trying to guarantee that the manager of the fund should be somebody coming from the private sector who has expertise in this kind of endeavor.
We also
needs to be emphasized in the final report.
Yeah, yeah, it will be, definitely, because that's the main affiliation that our initial treatment will have with the private sector, which is very important.
And we want this to be the manager's primary job. We want there to be just 3 to 5 managers of the fund so that they can make quick, nimble decisions and get back to the inventory so that it's not a process of months, it's just maybe a few weeks. So I think that that's definitely been looked at, and we've heard that when we fielded the interviews, essentially, Dr. Holmes.
Slide was only up for perhaps a minute, but you rated on a market-based decision process. That was one of your criteria. I believe you rated state agencies at the 1 plus, which was a pretty negative thing to say about state agencies. There's favoritism, some local idiot, senators, husband-in-law is going to get it. I noticed you rated the OU fund with 3 plus. I think if you took those 3 pluses and put perhaps a different spin on just exactly how universities make decisions, and you looked at the number of pluses you gave to a model that is a pure market-driven model, you would get a tie. I only saw it up there for a minute or so, but if you check your math on your model selection process, there's a powerful argument to suggest that the private sector-driven model
Well, actually,
is tied with the university-driven model.
Well, actually, yeah, the affiliated with a private venture fund got 4 points, and then the standalone university embedded model got 3 points. The reason we rated this in this way is because we're trying to guarantee that our seed fund is going to have a strong affiliation with the private sector by having a management team that comes from that actually has that expertise.
Besides, by the university.
The university is gonna be administering the seed fund, but it's the manager and the management team who ultimately would make the decision.
But his question was employed by the university, wasn't it?
But they're not employed by the university in the fact that they're
Yeah, that would be the case.
But they're paid by market return, so if they make a
And on that subject, what is the rate of return on seed investing? I saw your arrows went up. Just all up. Every arrow went up. Some went up later, some went up earlier, but they all went up. Did that ever fail?
A couple of clarifications. I mean, I think it's important to highlight this is going to be a university sort of push managed fund coming out the door, but ultimately needs to be managed by somebody outside the four walls of the university to ensure business decisions are made and not political academic decisions. So that's the point that even though sort of the first is the steering committee as it relates to the codification or development of funds, ultimately the selection of management team needs to be externally market-driven. As it relates to rate of returns, that's a very difficult question because I think there's a real survivor bias on these fund data, and you'd like to think, late-stage guys don't make as good a return as mid-stage as good as late stages, which is early stages you expect because it's a risk, much riskier, so you should get a better return. The seed stage historically has gotten, for the ones that survive, they make 40-50% IRR. For the ones that survive. So it's a very difficult question to answer. I don't think anybody has a good handle on what the seed stage rates of return are. But it's a hard question to answer.
NOU does have a history of having a foundation run by outside of the health sciences. The money that was generated in the way. And decisions were made on a very good process.
Yeah,
so I think that OU can do this. I mean,
it will be talking to university
model that they can make decisions outside of the bureaucracy.
And when we talked to the other university associated funds, I mean, it was almost 0.1. The thing needs to be run independently.
Right.
Here, that was just almost 0.1 because there's lots of just conflict, university weight, etc.
Last question.
The demand for donor cash, freelance cash, is quite heavy these days. How would you foresee encouraging the university to prioritize the raising this money over perhaps a New Deckham Stadium or I'm this is a serious question because if you're standalone, you're relying upon your Alpha block for donor cash. The other one is an investor cash, and your board is not going to be as free to do with that cash because the investor's going to have some idea of what the money.
So how do you propose to get the